Witam Państwa raz jeszcze. Zaczynamy wieczorną sesję plenarną Open Ice Economy Summit tu w Krakowie, który jest miastem gospodarzem kongresu. Wieczór zaczynamy od pytań o wzrost gospodarczy. Czy dziesięciolecia manii dążenia do wspomnianego wzrostu zmniejszyły naszą zbiorową zdolność wyobrażania sobie alternatywnych systemów ekonomicznych? Zatem przekornie. The growth is dead. Long live the economy. Przed Państwem dr Timothée Parrique, l'Université Clermont, Auvergne. Bonsoir. The stage is yours.
Thank you very much. Today I want to make two claims. First, the paradigm of growth-based economics should be declared dead. And second, we should consider this to be great news, because it means we can now reinvent a new, more sustainable model of development. So let me start with this statement. The constant pursuit of economic growth is the main driver of environmental degradation. I know that some believe in green growth and in the decoupling of GDP from environmental pressures. While this belief might be reassuring, it has no scientific validity. Last summer, my colleagues and I published a study titled Decoupling Debunked. We tested the solidity of the green growth hypothesis, and what we found is that it is not solid at all. Fact is, not only is there no empirical evidence supporting the existence of a decoupling on anywhere near the scale needed to deal with environmental breakdown, but also, and perhaps most importantly, such decoupling appears unlikely to happen in the future. So let me be clear. The green growth everyone talks about today is a myth. That's why we chose the Loch Ness Monster to illustrate the cover of the report. Can we be more efficient? Yes, of course, but slowly and not infinitely. The real question is, can we be so efficient as to still increase production and manage to avoid catastrophic climate breakdown? And the real answer to that question is no. Here's the situation as I see it. Either we slow down the biophysical metabolism of our economies, or we watch our planet losing the ability to host human life. We must face the fact that what we need today is degrowth, a planned reduction of energy and resource use through the downscaling of production and consumption. After investing all our hopes in efficiency, we must now turn to sufficiency and collectively organize a prosperous way down to a smaller, more sustainable economy. And there's something else I want to say. On top of these ecological limits to growth that we often hear about, there's also social limits. Even on a planet with infinite resources and unbreakable ecosystems. And of course, I should remind people that is not a thing. But fine, let us say even then there could be no growth forever because the time a community can dedicate to the production of market communities is itself limited. That's how it works. To produce anything, one does not only need direct factors of production, like time, energy, material knowledge, but also indirect ones, like self-confidence, safety, and support. In the same manner that growth is limited by production factors, it is also limited by the availability of reproduction factors, such as rest, affection, caring, and security. The problem is, because they are devoid of monetary transactions and thus outside of GDP, and the sphere of for-profit competition, these unpriced characteristics tend to be left neglected by capitalism, a system that only rewards the production of exchange value. By not accounting for reproduction factors, market production can too easily lead to their depletion. This can take the form of burnout, time poverty, mistrust and intolerance, lack of civic and political engagement. In short, a slow degradation of the social fabric. So on top of the risk of ecosystem collapse, we also have the risk of social system collapse to take into account. This makes me think that this should not be called growth. In any meaningful understanding of the term, this is rather accumulation by social deterioration. And so, like a snake biting its own tail, economic growth is limited because it is inevitably based on the unsustainable exploitation of reproductive labor. This is one of the major contradictions of capitalism. And this is what happens when you organize an economy around money, let it be income, profits, or GDP, and not around needs like health, affection, and protection. We've got our priorities the wrong way around, with money being on top of needs. And we've been told the story of how, if we all try to boost money numbers, the market will sort it all, and all problems will be solved. It hasn't worked. If anything, the corona crisis should be the last nail on the coffin of neoliberal capitalism, a system, rest in peace, that is neither fair nor sustainable. So it is time to acknowledge the fact that fast and furious economies are not made for the 21st century. We can realize this now and change. We can realize this in 10 years, in the barren social ecological desert that this economic rampage will have created. Our choice. Let me now switch to the second claim, the one about rejoicing about the death of the glory, the one about how we can create a new, better story about our future. So as you know, I think growth is dead, but that's not necessarily a bad thing. For too long now, most countries in the world have followed a single development centered around the pursuit of more money. What we realize today is that the growth project is bankrupt. But the end of growth is not the end of the world. Actually, it's the opposite. The end of the hegemony of growth in our social imaginary opens the door to many new economic worlds. The future of the economy is not to be predicted, but to be invented. And this starts today. Imagine a society where the economy and its way of thinking are no longer at the center of everything. The extraction of material and energy is capped to a minimum at which everybody can flourish without threatening ecological health. Strategic resources like the climate, water, scientific knowledge, or banks are managed as commons. Production is all around needs and well-being and not around money. It is socially useful production. Businesses are centered around the pursuit of a social benefit and take the form of cooperatives. Priorities are discussed politically in a participative manner, most often at the local level, following the principles of direct democracy. Money is controlled by the community. It takes a diversity of shapes and it is treated as a means and not as an end. It is no longer a symbol of success. Anybody is guaranteed free access to a decent level of food, education, healthcare, transportation, housing, information, as well as water and energy, either via public services or by the granting of a basic income. In such a post-growth society, we would work less, but we would play more. People would alternate between paid and unpaid activities and are less concerned about their career and material possessions. We would consider work to be more than just wage labor and value all the care tasks that are fundamental in ensuring social ecological reproduction. People's lives would be outwardly simple, but inwardly rich, following the tenets of voluntary simplicity. They would travel slower and closer while embracing frugal lifestyles that strongly rely on relational goods and reciprocal networks of care and gift. We could continue, and I'm sure we will. This economy is begging to be invented right now. What I wanted to do, I just wanted to show that this is what happens when we start to think about what we can do now that we don't have to sacrifice our lives and our planet boosting money numbers. We can rethink notions of work, value, sustainability, and justice. We can deconstruct certain institutions like speculative financial markets, manipulative advertisement, or for-profit corporations, and create new institutions like local currencies, cooperatives, and repair cafes. Again, the future of the economy is to be invented, and it's to be invented today. And this is my main message. It is time to invest in our ability to invent desirable futures. Those who claim that there is no alternatives are only demonstrating the failure of their own imagination. Worse, they fail to see that there has always been alternatives, except that these were discredited as inadequate in comparison to the grow fast, grow furious Western model of development. We now know the end of the story of fast and furious economics. Ecological degradation, economic inequality, social regression. The story of growth at all cost is a story that doesn't end well. Keeping an obese economy alive is going to kill us, either ecologically or socially, or both. What we need is an economic diet. No more economic growth, but degrowth. Every time you hear that growth is necessary, imperative, natural, common sense, that growth creates jobs, eradicate poverty, reduces inequality, contributes to well-being, every time you hear that growth is prosperity, ask yourself, is it really? There is now a decade of solid research in the field of degrowth that has challenged these associations and showed that further growth in rich regions of the world is more of a problem than a solution, a cost rather than a benefit. So this is the design challenge of our times. How can we build economies that can prosper without growth? How to ensure that everyone on Earth has enough to live a happy life without threatening planetary boundaries? This is why we're here. Thank you very much.
So, thank you very much, Dr.